Good morning, grade 7. This is lesson number 7 of chemistry, and again the chapter is the non-metals. Today the topic is displacement is a redox reaction. You are well known about redox. This is the combination of reduction and oxidation in the same reaction. It's given on page number 99. Displacement is a redox reaction. First of all, let me remind you what is reduction and what is oxidation. Do you know what is reduction? Reduction is gain of electrons and oxidation is loss of electrons. Let's look at the displacement reaction where the reduction and oxidation will take place. When chlorine displaces bromine in the reaction, the chlorine atoms gains electrons to form chloride ions. Why? Because chlorine atom can strongly attract the electrons towards itself more than the bromine. So chlorine atoms gains the electron to form chloride ions, so they are reduced. On the other hand, the bromide ions lost electrons to form atoms. They are oxidized. Bromide ion was negatively charged before, and by losing electron it become a neutral atom, so they are actually oxidized. So displacement is a redox reaction. Now how this all happens? First of all, take the solution of potassium bromide. Potassium bromide is a ionic compound, so it will ionizes in the solution. Bromide ions and potassium ions will ionized, they will get separate. By adding chlorine in the same solution, the chlorine atoms will gain the electrons from bromine, and by gaining the electron, chloride will become negatively charged. So then the chloride ions will attract the potassium chloride. क्योंकि नेगेटिव चार्ज अब क्लोरीन पे आया है तो पोटेशियम क्लोराइड बनेगा, पोटेशियम ब्रोमाइड नहीं बनेगा, क्योंकि ब्रोमीन अपने इलेक्ट्रॉन्स लॉस करके न्यूट्रल हो चुका है. और जब सिंगल ब्रोमीन न्यूट्रल फॉर्म में होता है तो उसका आउटर शेल इनकम्प्लीट है. दैट्स वाई वन ब्रोमीन विल कंबाइन विद अदर ब्रोमीन इन ऑर्डर टू कंप्लीट इट्स आउटर शेल एंड इट विल फॉर्म अ diatomic molecule. Is it clear? Now what happened ionically? Ionically, bromide ions were present in the solution and also the chlorine atoms. But as the chlorine atoms can more strongly attract the electrons towards its nucleus because of its smaller size, and the distance between nucleus and outer shell is smaller than in case of bromine. That's why chlorine will attract the electrons from the bromide ions and it will form chloride ions. On the other hand, the bromide ions lost electrons and they will form bromine atoms, and the bromine atoms will combine to form diatomic molecule. It will get released. So in that case, the chloride ions will attract towards positively charged potassium ions and form potassium chloride. Is it clear? Now this is another example of displacement reaction. When chlorine as a gas or dissolved in water, it can be in gaseous form, it can be in dissolved form, is added to sodium bromide solution. Now look, sodium bromide is again ionic compound and this solution will have sodium ions as well as bromide ions. Bromide पर कौन से charge होगा? Negative. The chlorine takes the place of bromine. Why? Because the negatively charged bromine will lose its electron towards the chlorine, as chlorine can attract the electrons more strongly. So the negatively charged chloride will then takes the place of bromide ions. Is it clear? Because chlorine is more reactive than bromine, it displaces bromine from sodium bromide. This brown color is displaced bromine. सोल्यूशन का कलर पहले ट्रांसपेरेंट होता है, जितने भी हेलोजेंस के साल्ट हैं वो ट्रांसपेरेंट कलर में होते हैं, लेकिन बाद में उसका कलर ब्राउन कलर हो जाएगा. क्यों? क्योंकि सोल्यूशन में ब्रोमीन बन चुका है एंड द कलर ऑफ ब्रोमीन इज़ रेडिश ब्राउन. तो जैसे ही कलर चेंज आएगा आपको पता चल जाएगा कि एक्चुअली जो सोडियम ब्रोमाइड है वो चेंज हो चुका है सोडियम क्लोराइड में, जिसका आपको पता है कलरलेस होता है. टेबल सॉल्ट आप सब जानते हो घरों में यूज़ होता है. ठीक है, तो सोल्यूशन का जो कलर है वो ब्राउन हो जाएगा। क्यों? क्योंकि ब्रोमीन प्रोड्यूस हुआ है और ब्रोमीन का कलर रेडिश ब्राउन होता है। डिस्प्लेसमेंट रिएक्शन ऑफ हेलोजन chlorine plus sodium bromide, this is how you will write the word equation. So bromine will produce, as a result sodium chloride will form. Chlorine plus sodium iodide, chlorine is more reactive than iodine as well, so it will form sodium chloride. If you compare bromine and iodine, so bromine is smaller than iodine, that's why bromine is more reactive than iodine. So in sodium iodide, bromine will replace the iodine and it will form sodium bromide. As you have learned it in the previous lectures that going down in the group the reactivity will decreases क्योंकि साइज इंक्रीज होगा, इसीलिए आयोडीन नीचे है ब्रोमीन ऊपर है, तो ब्रोमीन इस केस में आयोडीन से ज़्यादा रिएक्टिव होगा, इसीलिए ब्रोमीन विल रिप्लेस आयोडीन. So this is chlorine plus sodium bromide, and bromine will produce along with sodium chloride. The chloride displaces the bromine, and this is the ionic equation in which bromide ions are here. Chlorine will takes these electron, will gain electrons and it will get reduced. Bromine will lose electron and it will get oxidized. As reduction and oxidation, gain of electron and loss of electron taking place in the same reaction at the same time. That's why this reaction is a displacement reaction and as well as a redox reaction. This is your homework, and the question is bromine water is added to potassium iodide solution. You have to be very careful about this. Bromine water is added to potassium iodide solution. What would you expect to see? क्या आपको चेंज आप एक्सपेक्ट करते हो इनकी रिएक्टिविटी कंपैरिजन को देखते हुए, ठीक है? Why does this reaction occur? And what is oxidized and what is reduced in the reaction? You have to answer each question and again in the very neat and tidy form. I hope this is all clear to you now. Thank you, class.